Good morning. I am Andrea with Happy Cloud Creations. I'm jumping on today because it is week 3 of the SnowBell Prize Quilt-Along. This week we will be making all of our block 1's. So this is a snowflake pattern that has 2 different snowflake designs. And this week we'll be making all of our block 1's. Last week we made all the corner units because all of the blocks have the same corner units. And so now we're just making all the other units and then putting our blocks together. Since I'm making a baby size, I only have 5 blocks to make. I made all of mine because I realized, I found out that my daughter's teacher, the person I'm making the quilt for, she's having a baby, and now that I'm staff, I'm invited to the baby shower, and it is actually a week earlier than I expected. So I have a week less to make this quilt. And so I'm like, I gotta go a little faster than the quilt along, but I'm still gonna do the weekly check-ins. So I have all of my 5 blocks done. Here's one of them. Block 1, the centers are gonna be your background or your main color. And then on the block 2s, it switches, and the center will be the white, your snowflake color. So it kind of gives it, if you want the 2 different snowflakes. But if you want to do all of the same snowflake, that's cool too. This one is a little more time consuming just because it does have the hourglass and the flying geese block next week. It's just these sections are like a stitch and flip, which I'll go over those next week. So let's get into it. So you have your pattern on page 6. It shows you how to make the flying geese. I've gone over those several times in my past quilt-alongs. If you're unsure how to do that, you can go to my YouTube page and look that up. This pattern does give you the directions for the 4 at one time flying geese, which I prefer, which is in the main part. And then the very last page of the pattern, where did I put that? Has a supplemental instructions for the 1 at a time flying geese, here it is. It's not back in order. 1 at a time flying geese, and then also flying geese using half square triangles. The reason I gave these 2 different options was if you are doing very scrappy and all you have is smaller pieces, because the 4 at one time does require a larger square and then smaller squares. These are a lot smaller pieces. The half square triangle method and the 1 at a time method are smaller pieces. So if you're using a lot of smaller scraps, this might be the way to go. Okay, so once you've made your flying geese, you can set those aside. And then we're going to do the hourglass. Since I've never really gone over hourglass blocks before during a quilt-along, I thought I would give you a little bit of tips with them. That is on page 7 of the pattern. You start out making them just like you would a regular half square triangle. You draw your line down the center of the lighter color fabric. If you can see that, I use a hair marker to mark my lines. I use a ruler and then I line it up and use this. That way there's no ink left on my fabric, because I know sometimes ink can stain depending on what kind you use. So I just figure this is nice. And my ink, even my washable ink pens for quilting always dry out. So this never dries out. It is more difficult to see on like darker color fabrics. But so far it's okay if I use this still. Once my eyes get a little older, probably it'll make it a little more difficult to see. It's already starting to. But anyways. Okay, so you draw the line down the center, and then you're going to sew a 1/4 inch, a scant 1/4 inch seam from that center line, just like you would a regular half square triangle, but at this point, once you cut them together and then press them, you're not going to trim them yet. So these hourglass blocks are made slightly bigger, and then you trim them to size. So you make your half square triangle, large ones. And then I would press both fabrics to the darker side. Pretend like I pressed these, right? So then when you're going to go put these together now, and once they're pressed to the darker side, you're basically going to put the opposite colors on top of each other, right? And since you pressed one this way and one that way, they're going to nest up really nicely against each other. But before I actually pin them together, I press them and then I mark my line on the back of one of them from corner to corner this way. See, and so once you put them together, they're going to nest up just like that, see? And then when I'm pinning them together, I like to pin these corners. Like I smooth these two seams together and I pin along this seam, but then I'm also going to pin here and here and here because that is where I'm going to be sewing. If you can see that. I marked my line and then I sewed a 1/4 inch seam from that drawn line. Then got to take out all the pins. And then cut down this center. Sometimes that center piece can be pretty bulky, so make sure you got some either really sharp scissors. The only problem with using a rotary and ruler, sometimes I worry that you might slip a little, right? So we have our hourglass block. Isn't that cute? You're going to press to one side or the other. It doesn't really matter. And then when you go to trim this up, I have directions right here about how you're going to want to line your ruler up because these are made slightly larger than needed. Just so in case your sides got a little wonky, you're going to line your ruler up, which is over here. Okay, so most rulers will have a diagonal line. And I really like this 6.5 inch ruler just because it helps with so many different blocks that I make. Any brand. This is Omni Grip, but I've also used Fiskar, and that works really great too. It's just so you can have a diagonal line and it's smaller, easy to work with than like a big ruler, right? Even though these big rulers do have a diagonal line, you just want to make sure you're doing the 45-degree line. And when you're trimming these, you're going to want to line it up with that line. And then this center dot right here should be at the 2 1/4. It should be 2 1/4 this way, 2 1/4 this way. And that little mark, 2 1/4, 2 1/4, that little dot should be on the very center of this unit. And so when you go to trim it, if they're both on, you know, 2 1/4, 2 1/4, if that dot lines up with that dot and your diagonal line matches up with this diagonal line, you can trim these two sides and then you flip it around, do the exactly same thing, and make sure this side is lined up with the 4 1/2 and 4 1/2. And then your hourglass will come out really, really nice, right? So once you have all your units together, you're going to sew all the units together to form your block. So I got navy, a really dark navy, a little bit lighter navy, then like a green, dark greenish blue, and then a little bit lighter one, and a little bit lighter. So I have those 5 blocks. They will be my 4 corner pieces and my center. And then the other 4 blocks next week will go in the middle sides, right? Oh, I got the hiccups. So I hope you guys are enjoying this quilt along. I know it's really quick, so not a lot of people signed up. But if you ever have questions, you can message me on one of my business profiles. If you try messaging my personal profile, I probably won't see it because I think those get blocked. But if you email me at happycloudcreations@gmail.com, or if you send me a private message on Instagram, I can try to get back to you as soon as I can. I do have a day job, so I probably won't be checking that until I get home from work. But if you have any questions, let me know. I hope this block goes together quickly for you. And then next week we will be making block 2s. And then the following week we will be putting them together. Since I have a week less than I thought I did, I'm going to start going into my block 2s tomorrow. And I don't know, we'll see where I am by next week. But I will jump on here and talk about block 2 next Wednesday, which has I call it a diamond and rectangle block, which is a stitch and flip block. So I will check in next week. Make sure to post your progress photos. I love seeing them. I know a few people are posting them over in the Facebook Quilt Along group. If you have not joined that yet, if you're on Instagram, make sure to answer the join questions so that I can weed out spam accounts. And I hope you have a wonderful day. I will talk to you guys later. Happy quilting!